Greetings. I am making this little video today to discuss the mind-body split. So I feel like we are presently in a time of the world, the time of our lives, as the Chinese curse goes, may you live in interesting times. We are certainly in that. And what's happening is we're getting more and more polarized. That polarity is pretty dysfunctional, as you may be observing. So what happens in our bodies experiencing, what is our body's experience of polarity? We have been, over the years, especially in Western cultures, creating a more and more cavernous split between the mind and the body. Our awareness is so mental, our energy becomes so mentally preoccupied, and we have all of these tools of numbing and distraction to split our conscious awareness off from the senses of the body. Why do we want to do that? What benefits? So you got to look at why we benefit from doing that. We don't have to feel our reality. We don't have to feel the weight of the reality. We don't have to feel the pain of our experiences and existence. We don't have to actually touch it. We can just think it. So our reality is coming in and out of just our upper energy. So very heady. So we have a certain amount of conditioning, education, and rather than acting from some internal impulse of desire because we have somehow determined that is actually sort of a lower quality of humanity. Our desires are of a lower quality of it's basically from misogyny and anti-blackness and all of this, is that we have determined that rational thought is king. But right now, lo and behold, as the patriarchy continues to collapse under its own heft, under its own deception, under the weight of its own deceptiveness, the rational mind is in a crisis because we have all the information, but we don't have enough grounding in our intuition to tell what's real or not. So we are still trying to just use our mind to decide what's real, and we're so disconnected from our own feeling states that we don't have an internalized sense of what is real. You can see why that's dangerous, because then we are getting in mental loops, hyper anxiety, and why shouldn't we? Because of course we're trying to dissect information without a grounding in what is truly real to us. So when I think about this, I'm brought to an example of a psychotherapist talking about putting a patient under hypnosis, and this is in the aftermath of World War II. It's an example in the book Eastern Body, Western Mind. Oh my gosh, what is the book? Fuck. I have so many books everywhere, y'all. It's a mess. Okay, here it is. Awakening the Heart. So, East-West approaches to psychotherapy in the healing relationship. Although Eastern Body, Western Mind is one of my Bibles for sure. But this book, they have an example where the psychotherapist puts a guy under hypnosis and makes the suggestion, okay, you'll stamp your foot 3 times when I snap my fingers. So it pulls him out of hypnosis, and just as he's going to leave, the therapist snaps his fingers, and the patient indeed stamps his foot 3 times. The therapist asks him, why did you stamp your foot? And of course, as we all are able to do, the patient was able to instantly rationalize his behavior. without actually having any true understanding or connection to what had just happened. So his unconscious was clearly unaware of what had happened. But his conscious mind, his rational mind said, I got this one. And the guy says, I had something in my shoe. We are doing this all the time. We are actually, we like to think of ourselves as invulnerable and, being so smart and intelligent, and we research, we check, fact check, and yet we are very susceptible to suggestion. That's good in a way because the mind is very adaptable. That has some benefits, but it's also that we can be tricked. We are prone to suggestion. And we are having suggestions made on our consciousness, on our worldview, our perceptions of reality. We are having inputs of what that should be and what that should look like all the time. So if we are not grounded in our bodies and we're asking our mind to figure out what's going on, we're going to have a really significant split because our body knows a lot. The body is very connected to a deeper wisdom. Our bodies have been evolving for however long, millennia, whatever. Like the human body has a huge amount of evolutionary wisdom, ancestral wisdom in its cells. The cells of our body have their own intelligence. They form themselves into certain organs. They form themselves into certain behaviors and functions within the body without anybody having to tell it what to do. As we're being developed in the womb, we don't have a brain that is this all-powerful authority figure telling the cells to go make themselves a lung, make themselves a heart. Our body has done all of this largely by its own intelligent design. So why are we then in this extreme top-down approach? Well, the intuitive has been disregarded and demeaned and devalued because of Eurocentric idealization of the rational, the needing proof, the needing science, the needing tangible ways of knowing. This isn't bad either. This is where we have the split. It's not an either or. It's a marriage. It's a mutually supportive marriage where without the rational mind, we are at a loss of certain types of discernment. And without the intuitive mind, we're at a huge loss of other types of discernment. So we need both, just as we need both masculine and feminine principles to be in a comfortable marriage within our existence. So we need the structure of the masculine. We need the, hard not to make it sound sexual, but we need the forward thrust, the assertive thrust that is a sort of masculine side of creativity. We also need the feminine that holds space for the mystery, that holds space for the wordless, that is invested not only in those ways of knowing, but also caring, tending, doing the actual emotional labor of understanding and learning the language of the body, because we're not fluent in that language anymore. Like, I feel like that is one of the gifts that I hope to offer in my lifetime, is this beauty, the poetry, the language of the body being something that we can learn and become fluent in, because I feel like that's my first language. English is my second language. The body is my first language. But think about this, like the challenge with the intuitive having been devalued and wounded so tremendously. I mean, it's essentially the gaslighting of hundreds and hundreds of years of saying, no, that's not what's going on, blah, blah, blah. We have to be able to sink into that deeper knowing. But what happens is our traumas can our trauma responses can kind of mimic an intuitive hit. So we actually have to get really fluent in the body's awareness and know when we're activated from a trauma response and know when we're getting an intuitive hit that just is that deeper knowing. But it's kind of like, if you've seen the, I thought these were so funny, but it's like the French translation videos where it's like a guy typing in all these different words and the translation is like, ma mère, ma mère, ma mère, ma mère, ma mère. And it means something that is a bunch of different ass words in English. Like, that is kind of how the body talks. You have to really know what's going on to tell the difference between ma mère, ma mère and ma mère, ma mère. But yeah, so this is kind of, it's encouraging, I hope, because there's always a way to improve our conditions, to own our power of choice, and make an effort to befriend and get to know what the hell our body is saying. We try to ignore it constantly with all of the things we do to distract ourselves and numb ourselves. And think about how that would feel. Like, if you had a friend and every time they wanted to talk to you, you shoved a dessert in their face. Or every time they wanted to talk to you, you had to go drink a beer. Or every time they wanted to talk to you, you end up scrolling on your phone for 2 hours. So the body wants to be heard. The body is trying to communicate with you all the time. And it's not that you have to redirect your entire life path, but the slowing down and the willingness, really the courage and willingness to listen, because you have the opportunity to move away from what the body is saying by moving towards distraction and numbing and dissociation, which has its own purpose. So don't beat yourself up about those patterns if you have them, because there's benefits to them. Like, me being able to soften the sensation of my body by having a glass of wine or doing whatever, like, none of that is inherently bad or morally wrong. But when we're doing that unconsciously, we're missing out on a lot of awareness. Like, we're creating such, again, this huge gap of awareness because the mind is not enough. The mind is cracking right now. Like, the mental, the psychological well-being of, like, at least culturally, my sense of the United States, like, it is being held together by a string of floss that is also known as, like, our chemical and otherwise dependencies. And that string of floss, if it has a break, like, we are in these polarizing effects of what information we're given is creating, like, a sort of collapse, like a sort of psychological collapse. So when we can actually soften into the body's awareness, we can start to bring that polarity into a little more nuance, into a lot more awareness and understanding of what is actually going on. Because we're going to continue to have so much manipulation and propaganda and brainwashing coming our way. Like, you better be ready, because it's only going to get more extreme for a while. And that's the misinformation. Being given, being fed misinformation, because that will fuck with your mind. And the gaslighting of all of that is, like, unnatural, very abusive, and yet, unless you get the intuitive online, you're going to be spinning constantly, like, your whole concept of what the world is, because things are going to get worse still. Like, we still have a lot of, we've, like, uncovered a few layers. Like, think about it being like something that's been in the, we're going into a house and no one's looked in the fridge for months, and it's a bunch of nasty stuff in the fridge. So we've been pulling out like the first most obvious things at the front that would be obvious to anyone that opened the fridge at all. So if we're thinking about conscious awareness, like racism, police brutality, all of that is very obvious actually if you just look. But so many people have not been looking for a long time. So anyways, to get back to the idea. So we have these first things, these Tupperwares of disgustingness at the front. And then we pulling those out. We're trying to work with those. We're trying to clean it up, but we throw it up and gagging because it smells so nasty. And it's very difficult to clean, blah, blah, blah. There's some other shit in there. Like, there is a lot of other shit in the fridge that we still, that's even longer simmering, even more vile smelling, etc. So all the effort is worthwhile, but get into body practices. It is so easy to, I love the phrase doom scroll. It's so easy to doom scroll incessantly. There's so much information. I found myself in a state of FOMO about information like never before, because it feels like so much crucial things are happening that if I spend time away from my phone, that I'm missing out on knowing what is going on. I haven't really struggled with that a lot before. This is genuinely like the first phase of my life where I'm like, I have a sense that I'm missing out on some crucial information because so much reporting and so much sharing is happening all the time with really like valuable things. But also my body needs me. My spirit needs me. So when we start to create this split where we're valuing the mind over the body, or we're valuing spiritual work over the groundwork, we're not doing ourselves any favors. It has to always be it has to always be moving towards integrating those different aspects, because none of it can work by itself. We are a holistic system. We can't just have the mind as the dictator of our functional ways of being. It's so dysfunctional and harmful, and you're gonna get the diseases and the pain of the body eventually coming to bite you in the ass if you don't listen to the body as you're going along. I mean, it happens anyways, but it can especially happen when we don't tend to the body's early signals and signs that alert us to the care that we need. On the other hand, if we're totally not able to connect or access like a more spiritual plane, then we're going to be completely stuck in a survival mode that is very that doesn't have the vision to actually move into the creative space that we need. Like, we need the visionary, we need the dreamers, we need the spiritual guidance and the mental health guidance, the emotional guidance. We need that. We can't just shoot them up, dice them up. We have to also build. We have to also create. So we need all of it. We need to be able to actually stand our ground. That is a very valuable thing to be able to do when you're being confronted with abuses that are, I mean, to most of us, it's unfathomable how the extent and how long these kind of abuses have been going on, especially if this is like in any way new to your like worldview or concept of reality. Yes, this has been kind of, the modus operandi has been like intense brutality and manipulation of the citizens of the world for the profit of the ruling class, and all the many shapes and flavors of that brutality and abuse. So we need that vision. We need to cultivate the vision. We need to be able to be in that soft space, that open, expansive spaciousness of the intuitive. And we also need to be able to ground it and make it real. But the mind-body split is where that's happening. So if you're finding yourself, even right now, if you have made it through this fucking 20 minutes of me, if you've made it this long, you're probably kind of up here. So even just take an exhale. And notice where that exhale releases into your body. Notice where your weight settles. Breathing in, notice where the weight lifts. Notice where the weight settles. Notice where your feet are. Notice your hands. Notice the sensation. Close your eyes for a moment and notice the sensation of the face. Breathe in again from there. And sense the expansion into the heart, into the lungs area. It doesn't take adding an entire new, you don't have to change your full approach to life to invite the body into your experiences. You just have to soften enough to welcome that presence, welcome that awareness. And even when you are doing something that's kind of a heady or intellectual activity, if you're reading, if you're sitting on your phone, doing computer work, having an intense conversation, you can have those little moments where you are bringing yourself back into your body. You're bringing yourself back into your body instead of running away from your body. And just do that little by little. Little by little. Just start to notice. Just give yourself, promise yourself, if you've watched this far, you deserve to give yourself the commitment of saying, I will allow myself to notice when I'm checking out, or I will allow myself to notice when I haven't felt. And then you build your ability to hold those charges. You build your ability to hold more and more energy. And that's when you get to do a lot of fun. And that's when it gets more fun. Because once you can hold reality, once you can accept and hold the experience of reality, that's your ground. You can handle the charge of reality, so you're no longer resisting the world. You're no longer resisting the world around you, which is essentially that you're no longer having to move or walk in fear of hitting something that will be beyond your capacity. You feel it's not that things are automatically good, but that you trust your resilience. So it's not that, and that's the crazy, obviously, the spiritual path is not that you become without pain, or that you become automatically like able to just have everything you want all the time. But you become resilient to the process of life, so you can actually be in the flow with the life force energy that is natural to your body. So you're getting that life force energy from the earth, from your experience of being in the world, from these connections with people, all of that tangible, physical, the physicality of the world. Your body is in this world, in this earthly plane. Enjoy it. Let that sensation in. Little by little, again, we have a lot of reasons we don't want to feel, but if we titrate those sensations little by little, getting a little more resilient to holding that charge, then you can really have the sense of your divinity at the same time that you're holding space for your humanity. So you can allow the magic of the world around you into your body's experience. You can allow inspiration and connection to the divine, connection to the source energy, connection to the magic of like the stars and the ocean and all of this stuff that is right in front of us. But because we're so divorced from the body, we're also divorced from this supportive structure, this supportive energetic network that we're all a part of. So leaning in, leaning out, moving with a little more willingness to shift and adapt. And yes, that's sort of referencing, so Nakem Nadefo of Lumos Project, I believe. Lumos Transforms. She illustrated this so perfectly, talking about the balance of being the change and making the change. So be the change allows for that spaciousness, allows for you to work on yourself. The make the change is putting that groundwork into place where it is coming from here and coming into form. And the thing about, there's a lot of talk about kind of like individualism and the, the negative aspects of individualism. And it's just a tool. To me, it's literally a lens. You're looking at the individual, but the lens can be changed. You don't have to stay stuck in the individualism. That's the thing. The problem is in our stuckness. So if I'm stuck in an individualistic lens, yeah, that's dysfunction. That's dysfunction. If I am able to actually expand beyond that and never see myself, never see my own experience, that's dysfunctional too. Never see the uniqueness of my incarnation. That's dysfunctional too. And it's also going to be that you're denying your needs and all this other stuff that will come out in shadow ways, which is why you will see that leftist groups, organizer groups, are not immune. Like people that are super community oriented or super activist oriented, they're not immune from interpersonal problems because you still got to work on your own shit. You still got to deal with your own psychological wounds. And really, that balance of, are you safe? Do the psychological wounds that you have prevent you from being safe to others? Like, do you really know the harm that you're currently capable of causing? Are you actually able to be mindful enough of your behavior to prevent yourself from being harmful to others? That's psychological work. That's not community activism work. It goes hand in hand. You can't have one and not the other with a healthy dynamic. So for me, if I'm working on my body, it's not just for the sake of refining my body. If I'm trying to learn the language of my body, it's not just so that I, feel connected enough to myself that I have, that I can self-detect the early signs of cancer or something. No, I'm looking at my body. I'm studying my psyche because that's my nearest environment. That's my nearest environment to observe patterns. So all of those patterns that exist within my body and mind, those can be zoomed out and applied to community understanding, to universal understanding. It doesn't have to be either or. The either or, the zero sum game that we're playing of like, kind of this dismissal of the role of spirituality or love or kindness or all of those sort of things that are associated with the love and light crowd. Yes, there is playing particles with that. But when we completely dismiss that, we're missing a crucial part of like human needs. We want to be in connection. We want to be loved. I'm not going to deny my desire to be loved because I also want others to suffer less. I still want to be loved. I also think that if we focus completely on that, clearly we are in the narcissistic realm where we are actually so cut off from what the experience of a total reality is because we're so self-absorbed in our own spiritual process or whatever, that we're actually very ungrounded and unmoored from reality. Like, that is not a safe person. So you have someone that is overly preoccupied with the self, not going to be safe. Someone that is overly preoccupied with the other, which there's a lot of caretaking behaviors that go on with activism where you actually seek out tending to the problems of others because you don't want to tolerate your own wounds or work into your own psychological wounds. I've had a lot of teachers that say it more eloquently than me, and I want to cap this at 30 minutes. But just something to consider as you are moving through this world and your ability to discern what is real, what is true, what is possible. We need to get the body back online. and I am sort of building some tools for that, but in the meantime, there's many other facilitators and people that have body-based practices, and this is going to be pretty crucial coming up, or we're going to have that psychological collapse in a big way. So have a great day.